And now with an important alert, home title fraud is one of the fastest growing white collar crimes in the country. Criminals can make millions on your house without you even knowing it.
Don't get your home stolen. Today we're talking about 7 tips from title expert Yara Chamas, CEO of Innovation Title. But first, let's watch the clip.
And now with an important alert, home title fraud is one of the fastest growing white collar crimes in the country. Criminals can make millions on your house without you even knowing it.
And to help you keep your property safe, we're speaking with one of those criminals who was once on the FBI's most wanted list. 8 on your side's Beth Rousseau live with this story. Very interesting story, Beth.
And a super interesting conversation with this former federal prison inmate. Now, just take a second to think about how much paperwork it takes to purchase a home. We're talking about hundreds of pages. Now, this fraudster tells me all he needs is a couple of sheets of documents, and he can be making thousands off your home while you're living in it without you ever knowing.
I have had 27 driver's licenses in 6 or 7 different states.
Matthew Cox is settled in the Bay Area after spending more than a decade in federal prison.
I was basically responsible for $15 million in title fraud.
According to the FBI, it's one of the fastest growing white collar crimes in the country, especially in areas like Tampa, where the housing market is hot.
In about a month, I borrowed $1.3 million on 2 houses. Oh, it's just paperwork. It's all paperwork. Okay. If you can fill out paperwork, you can do this. This is not difficult.
He tells me criminals who know the right public records to request and fill out can start making money on your home in a matter of weeks.
I satisfy the loan. Now that you own the house free and clear, I make a fake ID in your name. I open up a few bank accounts. I apply for some loans in your name. I borrow 3 or 4 mortgages on your house in your name, close those mortgages in your name, deposit the money in the bank, pull the money out, and maybe 3 months later, they start to foreclose on you.
Cox says by the time you realize what's happening, he's already on to his next victim.
Nobody realizes how vulnerable they are until it happens, and then it's too late.
And so in order to protect yourself, what Cox says is that you need to be checking your home title routinely on a monthly or even weekly basis, which he says is something most people don't do. He tells me another really good option is to hire a company like Home Title Lock. What they're going to do is they're going to do those routine checks for you. And then if something does happen or something unusual pops up, then they'll hire a lawyer, I should say, and they'll advocate for you in court.
Well, I can't agree with everything that I hear, but that sounds pretty scary. I've heard of one scenario where somebody was getting their land stolen, but I never heard of it on a house. Is that something that happens on a regular basis?
Not on a regular basis, but it does happen a lot. So it's so easy to make a fake ID. Like you can order it online. And once you have enough information on the person, you can just open a bank account. No one checks the ID that you bring in. No one scans them. Even when we get IDs as a title company, we trust that your attorney checked your identity and all of these things. So it's so easy to open a bank account. When you refi, you never meet your loan officer.
Wow, that's true, actually.
Yeah.
And they send those people to your house like signing agents.
Yes.
Yes. So you never meet them. Then they call and ask you, where would you like to sign the paperwork, right? So you can sign the paperwork at Starbucks.
Right.
Nice.
Which
That's
I've
a
done.
great idea.
Yeah.
Can you give me a license that says I'm 40? And then with the title. So how many, you obviously do titles of all different sizes from 100,000 to 50 million. What?
Yeah, and just to rewind real quick for viewers that are maybe just starting out in real estate and don't know, what is title?
What is title?
So title insurance, it's basically you save so much money for this asset, right? This is your biggest investment. So it has nothing to do with homeowner insurance. It's insuring the history of the house. So we do the searches. We find out how this property was transferred from one person to another. If the deed was transferred clear. So this way, when you are investing all this money, you're safe. And lenders would not lend you money if you don't buy title insurance, because that's the only way that you're ensuring that the property is safe, and then all that money is going to come back to them.
So you're saying safe to buy, meaning that
buy.
the person who's selling it to you actually owns it.
Yeah, so there's no liens, there's no judgments against. Okay. Like if there's so many different scenarios that can go, whether it's divorce, where it's like family having fights over properties, someone forging papers. So you never know what's the history of the house. Our job is to ensure that your ownership is clear so the bank can lend you the money.
So I actually have been a almost victim of some kind of title issue, but I've obviously, as you all know, I've been buying tons of properties over the last 100 years that I've been around. So one year we did a flip, and I've done many, but this was my first flip. And I was like, I'm going to save some money, and I'm not going to get title insurance.
That's where things go
now,
wrong.
I wasn't 100% stupid. I was only like a little bit stupid because I had a title run down. I had a report done.
Right.
Okay. But I didn't get insurance. Now that report showed whatever needed to be shown, and we were clear and we were good. Well, lo and behold, surprise, when it came time to sell, all of a sudden there was like a student loan or some like $50,000 lien that popped out of nowhere that
goodness,
wasn't
yeah.
caught in that rundown report. What's that about?
So when anyone is trying to sue you, right? Like, so I can file something against you right now, and there's no judgment against you yet. So if I run a judgment history on you, on your property, I'm not going to find anything because there's no judgment yet. When we get a contract on the house and you order title, we file an NOS, a notice of settlement. So telling the whole world that this property is going on sale. So if someone has something going on, they will come forward and say, like, you know, that house, like, I owe part of it, or this person owes me money, or I'm a contractor and I'm trying to put a lien on the house. And normally, as a seller, you're supposed to sign an affidavit of title saying that there's nothing on the property that you are aware of. So if you have a current lawsuit that's happening and you don't mention that, that's on you.
Got it.
But that's not going to show in our searches. So if the searches are done and nothing's there, that doesn't mean that might not be something in the future. And that's why you are supposed to buy title insurance, because now you're protected.
So we would have obviously not been protected, and we would have lost out $50,000. Fortunately, this is my first flip, so we were doing it with someone who we kind of knew, and we were helping them out, and we were able to work through that, and it didn't cost me anything. But I can say from that moment forward, I have never not had title insurance on a property.
Yeah, it's a scary scenario to have to deal with.
And also to follow up on that video, so there's two type of title insurance. There's like a regular title insurance and an enhanced title insurance. So the enhanced title insurance protects you from the future. When you purchase a house with a regular title insurance, it protects everything from the past until the day you purchase the property. And then down the road, if anything happens, if someone like try to pretend to be you and get a mortgage like this guy did.
Like this guy did, yeah.
Right, then you are protected. So even though he's saying like, there's so many companies that might monitor and get you an attorney and all of these things, but that's going to take time. When you have an enhanced title policy, you are protected up to 1.5 the value of the house. So if you bought the house for $500,000 and something happened down the road and you had to pay, you're protected up to $750,000.
All right, so hold on. There's something called an enhanced title policy?
Yeah, I didn't even know
All right,
about
so
this.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. Where like, why didn't anyone tell me this? I've been doing this for 30 some odd years. Never heard of an enhanced title policy. I've heard of an owner's policy. I've heard of the bank policy, but
Well, unfortunately, attorneys don't take the time to explain a lot about title policy. Like when you purchase your first property, the first time you heard about title insurance is the day you were signing papers,
probably,
right?
you know,
And every
yeah.
first-time home buyer, when they come to the numbers on the CD and they're like, "What is title insurance? What am I paying $3,000-$4,000 on that?"
Right.
So people already like complain about the fees, which are set by the state.
and you can't close a bank loan without a title
You
policy
can't
anyway.
because no one will give you a
Right.
loan. So they're already like complaining about how expensive it is. Attorneys don't take the time to say, listen, you can be more protected if you. It's like anything, right? Like an add-on for an insurance, so you can be more protected when it comes to identity theft. You can also be
Right.
more protected if there's any open permits on the property that we didn't know about, because maybe the seller did not disclose that they did the pavement.
So you're saying
So it's kind of like an Oprah
Yes.
search as
So-
well, yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't do an Oprah search, but let's say the seller did not disclose that there's open permits on the property. And then now you're coming to sell down the road, and then somehow they got a survey, and the surveyor said, like, this is illegal done. There is no permits about this.
and the
you-
enhanced covers that too?
Yeah, so like they say you have to remove
Wow.
the shed, you have to remove the fence that was done illegally.
Yeah.
So I think you covered up to $30,000 on that by itself, separate
Wow.
from
So
the property.
don't I look like someone that would maybe buy extra things?
Yes,
So,
yes,
always buy
he
extra.
is.
I've been through at least 5 different attorneys, which I won't name on this program because they all watch. And not one of those wonderful attorneys
Yes.
has ever explained this to me.
What's the cost difference?
Damn, I'm going to have
It's really not that much. It's a couple of
conversation after
$100.
this show.
It's not that much on the cost difference. It's
All
not.
right, so I just
So
bought
it's
a house.
totally worthwhile.
100%.
I just bought
Yes.
a big house, right? For my 50th birthday. So
Really?
at that birthday, when I closed, no one said anything about enhanced title insurance. So let's say the house is $1 million. What would the difference between the regular title and the enhanced title cost roughly?
It wouldn't be much. It would be like maybe like $600 to $800, something like that. It's not
And
that.
that covers me for identity theft on the house. That covers me for open permit
permits,
issues.
yes.
Damn,
Wow.
I totally would have bought that.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
can I get that later on? Can I get that now?
Unfortunately, no, because then we're gonna have to run new searches on the property all
no.
over again.
well, I don't care about
It's
that.
like getting
I
a
know, but
warranty.
it's like getting all over again, like buying title insurance all over again.
Could I buy title insurance all over again?
Yes.
Yeah, but then that's a lot of
That's
money.
a lot of
Got it.
money.
So then the only time this would be another option is if I did another refi.
Yes.
Then I could throw it in on a refi.
Well, not really, because if you're
Okay.
refining, you already have your owner policy. You will only need lender policy with the new lender. So unless you want to pay all over again, your owner policy
so why
fees.
aren't people out there promoting this enhanced policy stuff? Like, that's crazy.
Because unfortunately, people don't think title insurance is important. Like, we get a lot of phone calls like, do I have to? Because it says owner policy optional, right?
Okay.
So, like, owner policy optional because the bank only requires you to get the lender policy.
Yeah, but all you need to do is send them a link to that
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
send them a
we
link to
just
that video.
watched.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Everybody's
real
buying
stuff
the-
that's happening out there.
Yeah, no, that's kind
There's
of
a lot
scary.
happening. Also, a lot with vacant lands is happening. So, unfortunately, getting a fake ID is so easy. And if someone just like, we get a lot of calls, we get emails requesting quotes of the title insurance and saying, oh, I live in this and this state and I'm selling this. And like it's crazy what's going on. And we always get a reminder from our underwriters of what's going on, like what stories they have heard and what happened.
All the scams, the
All
current scams, yeah.
Like we had a purchase where the wiring instructions of the seller's proceeds were on the name were two names instead of one name. So the deed is under Eric's name, and then but the bank account is Eric and Robbie. So
Oh.
I was like, why is Robbie on the bank account and Robbie's not even related to Eric?
Yeah.
And we don't understand what's the connection between these two.
So what do
So
you do?
I did not send the money.
Wow.
I said like I will only send the money for a sole account, like an account of the owner itself, because I don't know. Like it was an old lady, so we don't know what does. Eventually,
It's
down the road,
like
it's
that
gonna be
lady
like.
who brought her dead father in a wheelchair
Oh
to
my
sign a
God,
document.
yes.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a couple
yeah,
I
weeks
said
yes.
that was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. But it takes somebody like you who is on point and diligent enough to actually look at the paperwork and connect those dots and say, this is not making sense.
And what did not make sense on that one, especially, was that the lady was living in South Carolina and the notary was from New Jersey,
How do you even
who
do that?
notarized the wiring instructions.
How do you
So
even
how
do
did you notarize that if the lady right now currently is living in a different state? So there's a lot, and title companies have to be alert, and they have to. So we have a whole checklist to go over, especially wiring instructions,
Right.
and also payoffs, because sometimes payoffs can be hacked. We have a company called Certified that certifies all our payoffs information.
So that's like an
So-
additional backup. Do
Yes.
all
Sure.
title companies have that?
No.
Okay.
That's amazing.
We do not accept any wiring instructions via email,
Mm-hmm.
only like fax or regular mail. And when we get the payoffs, people normally send it via email. So that's why we have Certified. It's like a separate payment a month that we have. And we can send the wires with like a peace of mind, and we don't have to worry because they guarantee us, like they cover us up to $2 million in
So
case
what
the
do they
payoff
do?
is
They
wrong.
just double check all the information?
They double check. So I say, okay, like Bank of America, this is the routing account. This is their account number. Or like, let's say Mr. Cooper payoff. This is the bank account. This is the routing number, which they have that list from all the banks. So we know that the money is going to Mr. Cooper.
Got
So
it.
if
Yeah.
there's anything wrong, then it might be the amount. We can like always like call them, figure it out. But it's going to a safe place. We had a hack where it was a Chase Bank, and the email of the attorney got hacked, and everything was correct. It was like Robbie's account with Eric's account number.
Oh
So it was
my
Robbie's name on the account.
I
but
like
some-
that idea.
So like how? But I mean, we caught it. The bank caught it. Like it's the same routing number for the bank. It is Chase Bank, but it's someone
Yeah.
else's account number. So there's a lot going on, unfortunately.
It's like one of those things you see so many warnings about wire fraud and this and that, and then you don't really connect to how scary it is until you experience it or somebody close to you experiences it. And you're like, holy moly, like this is really going on out there. And there's a reason that there's all these checks and reminders to make sure that you're on top of whoever you're wiring money to. So that's amazing. I didn't even know that there was a company that takes that a step further to make sure that everything's correct.
Yeah, for payoffs they have that, and like most of title companies should have like a checklist of how to do wires, especially these days.
So what is the percentage of closings that actually get affected by fraud, do you think?
So I want to say at least, I mean, for me,
Zero.
but I've heard a lot of stories, especially with international accounts. Like I refuse to accept any international wires.
Yeah.
And if buyers want to wire money from outside or say wire my money because I'm living in Canada right now, no, I'm not going to do that.
Okay. So
Right.
then if they need to
So-
wire you money, you make them go to like a Bank of America, and then that
They go
becomes local.
through their
and then-
There's
attorney,
ways,
whatever,
yeah.
let them figure it out. Like,
Right.
and I refuse to take the deal. I'm not going to like put my company and my reputation in jeopardy. I don't want to have a lawsuit. I don't want to have a claim. It's a lot. And also cyber insurance is very, very expensive. So with all the systems that we have in place, we don't do any wires outside of the IP address of the office. So we have 3 people who have access to the wires. We have to physically be on site to approve or send out wires because our cyber insurance is very expensive. Nobody wants to insure title companies anymore because of the hacks that's happening.
Yeah.
So because we have certified, because of the system and the checklist that we have, they agreed to insure us.
So I'm excited to get to the 7 tips on how anybody can avoid these problems. But before we get there, we have a couple of other questions of things that have come up in discussions with you while we were prepping for this episode. So there was something with foreclosed properties and chancery searches. What the heck is a chancery search?
Yeah, what is a chancery search?
So a chancery
It's like
search.
take a chance. Is it like the lotto? Like
Yeah.
you have a chance whether you can buy the house, or there's a chance whether there's a
Yeah.
lien on the house. Like what
No, so like a lot of when a property goes in foreclosure.
Yes.
So what does that mean? That means like there was a lot of like loans that were not paid.
Someone didn't
Right,
pay.
default.
Someone,
Yep.
you're right.
Right.
So someone defaulted, the sheriff foreclosed on the property, and then they put it on an auction. So when they take over a property, they don't necessarily run searches of what happened before that, right? We just know that there was all these, that it was foreclosed on, right? We don't know anything about the owners. We don't know what other judgments are against the owner. So you run a chancery search to find out more history back. Is it one foreclosure? Was there more than one foreclosure on the house? Remember how like the guy took multiple loans on the
Right.
house? So if there's a different loan on the house that was taken, so we try to find out as much as we can when it's a foreclosure, because it's not like something easy where I bought the house 2 years ago, I did some renovation, and now I'm selling it and everything is clean.
So they could catch one issue, which what you're saying, at a foreclosure when they take the property, but there's so much other stuff still floating
We don't
around.
know what's going on.
Okay.
Yes.
And the title agent runs the chancery search?
Yes. So our searchers run. We have searchers vendors that we work with, and
Right.
they run the searches. Oh. Yeah.
And what's the cost behind that? Just curious.
It's a little bit more, but we normally don't ask for, our underwriters don't ask for a chancery unless it's a foreclosure, and it's been like sitting there for a little bit.
Right. So if you're
Yeah.
going to a sheriff's sale, like a county sheriff's
Yeah.
sale, you better be running a chancery search, because the sheriff's sale will tell you essentially what they know of on the property, what it's defaulted on, what liens it has on it, but it may not be everything.
It might not be everything.
I thought that they tell you everything that's there, but it sounds like a
No.
chancery search is necessary.
So I actually bought a couple properties. They were not in foreclosure. They had already been foreclosed upon. They were being sold, I guess, by the bank at the time. And I remember when I had to go to closing with those, like the amount of paperwork from whatever the issues were was probably 10 times more than in a normal situation.
It is more paperwork, and there's more things involved. Like we said, we don't know what happened with that house, and there's more. The bank is involved. There's like different payments that needs to be paid depending on what the person owed, whatever they know about that person, if any judgments or not. So it's a little bit more complicated than a regular purchase.
And what's the problem with LLC groups?
So people normally buy LLC. I have a very funny story. People buy homes and put them in LLC to protect themselves.
Yeah.
If you are getting sued and your home is under your name, they can come after you and take your house. If your house is an LLC, then your house is protected.
Is your house an LLC?
A limited liability corporation? No, it is not.
Is
you
it?
you can't do that, I thought, because of your mortgage.
So when you buy the house, if you are the owner of the LLC, if you open an LLC and you're the owner of the LLC and you're the sole member of the LLC and you take a mortgage under Eric,
Right.
you can do that.
So you're saying the mortgage right now, the house is in my name. I can switch that into an LLC.
Well, depending on the, I don't want to. Don't quote me on
Yeah.
this, okay? I mean, I'm
I
not saying it's like
100%
100% legal. So you can open an LLC under if the house is under your name and Lena's name, right? So if you and Lena own the property,
Right.
Lena, his wife.
yes, own the LLC together, then both of you are on the mortgage, both of you own the LLC. So really, you're not transferring ownership to anyone
I
else.
thought
but
the
two
bank
people.
would consider that like a sale, and then
They
would
wouldn't
call their loan.
We
and all
don't
that
tell
stuff.
them
Well,
unless
I
they
could
find
never do
out.
that.
Yeah. So I know
I
you're
could
very-
ask. Or you're saying just do it and then ask for forgiveness
We're
later?
not putting this on.
Well, that's how some of that creative financing stuff works also.
Yes,
right?
but it's really so like people when they get divorced, they do a quick claim deed, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like the husband deeds the house to the wife, but the mortgage is still under his name because she can't afford getting a mortgage right now. And it stays on like this for a while until
Mm-hmm. Oh,
she's
got it,
able
yeah.
to get a job and get a mortgage, and then she takes over the house and she takes over the mortgage,
Sure.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
it happens like every day. It's kind of the same thing. But the funny thing is like sometimes people do deed the house on LLC, but they don't open the LLC, which we had actually. This happened recently with a current deal that we have.
Then it's fate. What that means? It's non.
So I
binding.
opened Eric Anderson LLC. I didn't open it. You just deed me the property. You own it, okay? All of it, right? So it's paid off. And you deed it to Eric Anderson LLC from Eric to Eric Anderson LLC. Now you're selling it. The deed is recorded under the LLC. The LLC does not exist.
Okay, so the LLC can't transfer it.
The LLC can't transfer it. So depending on the underwriter and then on your affidavit of title saying that this was intentionally, the intention was to deed this to the LLC that was intentionally supposed to be owned only by me,
But never happened.
but never happened because I
So that's fraud.
it's really not fraud. It's just like the title company or whoever recorded the deed for you would be a stupid person. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Because like it's really like, what are
There's
you
a
doing?
lot of stupid people out there. So let's
So
get
when-
past this stupidity. Could you
Yeah.
actually close that transaction?
Yes, you can. You can just I just get an affidavit of title from you
Okay.
that's saying that your intention was that, and
So would
and
that
we run
per-
searches. If so, you're the owner, you transferred it, and then in the new sale, you're gonna transfer from you directly to the
All
new
right. So I know
owners.
this is you're not an attorney, but would that if that LLC was never actually opened, but yet you transferred it
That
there,
transfer is illegal.
and then you got sued, then they're going after you. So that didn't help you at all.
It
Probably.
it didn't help you because that, well, yes, but again, if that so that LLC breached a contract of the sale,
Right.
and they're gonna sue that LLC that doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Oh.
And it has no
So they can't
insurance.
play.
Oh
But
man.
then they're going to sue you because
Messy.
then it reverts back
Well,
to
the
you,
contract was between the LLC and I mean, yes, but there's so
right?
many.
So the trick
like,
is just
so-
sue both Eric Anderson and Eric Anderson LLC. and then
Yes, but
somebody's gonna be
depending on what's
responsible.
going on,
Right.
depending on what's
He's planning on being on the other side of that and trying to go after the person who's trying to take his property.
No, I just like the LLC idea. I have to. I'm actually going to ask my
Yes, so
my
but basically,
loan
if you
officer from
ownership
my
an
bank.
LLC protects you.
because I like
Okay.
it because you can hide your properties that way when
But-
they're in LLCs. Like right
Yes,
now, when
so you
people,
cannot find out who the
Right.
owner of the LLC are.
But that could be
yes.
the problem when it comes to title stuff, right? If they're
we can
hiding in
actually-
LLC groups.
Yeah, but
It's
we can
more,
find
it's more
out.
for like you do a tax record search, your name comes up. You know, everybody can find out. You have a famous person, you know, Sharon Stone, let's say, and you can if she owned
He
the,
still loves Sharon
if
Stone.
if she owned the house in her name, you could find out where she lived.
Right. But that's why she would put her house in an
Right,
LLC.
but not everyone can do that because banks won't give mortgages to LLCs for residential homes that you're going to live in. That's my experience.
Sounds like there might be a workworkaround to that.
We're going to find out. Let's do a whole show on
There,
it.
Yeah.
there is a
How to
workaround.
hide your house.
Yeah. Okay. On a future episode.
You can actually redact the information too.
Really?
Yes, there's a lot of information redacted. There's also something called Daniel's Law, but that's like for like witness protection program or like maybe people who work like in the government or
Yeah.
detectives like so-
Spies.
spies.
I'm a spy.
And what about shady agents and shady lawyers? That could be a problem when it comes to title as well, right?
Yes, that's a big problem because we trust the attorneys when they send us a contract
Mm-hmm.
and they prepare the sales docs, right? So they prepare the deed, they notarize the deed, they prepare everything that we're supposed to record.
And you're licensed.
And they're like, so if the
Right.
attorney is telling me, this is Robbie buying this property, and selling this property, and he signed here and I notarize it, but actually, you have no idea what's going on. But this attorney is on the game, and he's benefiting from this whole scam. How would I know? I'm not gonna go check
Right.
is that your ID picture? Because I have a photocopy of your ID.
So unless it was Betty White and you recognized her, then you would have no idea.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Oh my gosh.
We have a
Yeah.
couple attorneys that we know would probably have participated in something like that. But that's
So
crazy.
that's shady attorneys. When it comes to shady agents, unfortunately, another story I have for you. We had a house that beautiful, beautiful house, right? They did the inspection and everything came through great. Buying the house, now they're getting a quote for the homeowner insurance from their agent, and it was so high. And they were asking like, why is it so high? And apparently there was a fire in the house, but the sellers did not disclose.
Oh.
Now, when that happened, we weren't sure if the listing agent knew or didn't know.
Yep.
So then the buyers backed out of the deal because, which by the way, whenever you have a claim on a house, it's like a Carfax. Your homeowner insurance is going to always be high on that house.
Sure.
So it
Right.
stays with the house, the history of the house forever. So now they backed out of the deal. The seller's agent relisted the property and did not disclose
Shady.
the house. And now we know that you know.
Right. Yeah, there's
Now
no
we know that you
excuse
know.
this time.
Right, so whoever buys that house could eventually go back and sue that
Yes.
agent. Not a
This-
good agent.
This is scarier than squatters in some ways because, like, at least with squatters, they have to physically come into your house and, like, be there.
Yeah.
With title fraud, you could be living in your house, have no idea that this is happening right under your nose.
Yes, you have no idea what's going
So
on.
now you have shady agents, shady lawyers. Do you ever have a shady mortgage loan originator or mortgage
There's
officer?
a
Does
lot
that
of
happen?
stories of loan officers that went to jail. There's a very famous one in Monmouth County, and you can look him up. And he really did a lot with like older people because he
Right.
would refi their homes and take the money.
What a piece
Yes.
of garbage.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I know there's a guy up by where I live, actually a couple blocks away, who just got, I guess, indicted. Is that when they bring charges against you for like $1.4 billion of
So it's so
loans
easy.
in
So
New Jersey? So crazy stuff's going on.
When, like I said, like whenever we have a sale, we file a notice of settlement, and that puts it out there. So like it gets recorded right away. So when another lender is trying to give a loan on this property, they look at that and they know that someone else is trying to give a loan on this property, and that's how they know. But
Right.
you could have also some shady title companies who don't file the NOS.
And they would do that for what reason?
I don't know, but like let's say because they are making money somehow. Because like if you
Okay.
can get 5 loans on the house.
Right.
And you're
If
getting
you don't
kickbacks
file the
from-
NOSs, now you have 5 open loans for the same amount. You get like 5 $300,000 loan on the same house.
Wow. And as long as you pay them all, no one will ever know.
Well, if someone's doing that, they're not paying them. They're just taking the money and like flying
I
somewhere.
mean, but that could be
yes,
cool.
but
Like, what
it
if
could
you
be.
needed money for something? You
Yes,
just-
and you could totally do that. So we had a
that's very
sale.
creative.
That's insane.
It's crazy. So we had a sale, and the payoffs on the house were worth like 5 times the value of the house.
Did they pay it off?
We no. So
Oh.
you know,
So it was a scam.
so what happened? You take, so your mortgage takes first position,
Right.
Okay, and then anything else comes. So if you take a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, it comes after. If you have, I don't know, like a construction loan, like whatever it is, like they take order. If there's a judgment against someone, it takes order, right? If there's a construction lien, so
Judgments are before? or-
no,
Okay.
for mortgage is always first position.
Got it.
So now all these mortgages are open in order. They were recorded in order. So you have to pay first, the first one. And the other one's like,
And if whatever's
especially when you
left
claim
goes to number 2.
bankruptcy,
Ah,
right? So
yeah.
now, and then if you want to be very creative, the first mortgage could be a private mortgage. There's a lot going on.
So let's go through these 7 tips that Yara sent us on how not to get your home stolen and discuss them a little bit before we end the episode. So 7 tips. Number 1, do your research. Always thoroughly research the property and the seller. Look into the property's history, ownership, and any outstanding liens or debts. Similarly, research the seller or the company selling the property.
Yeah, so like vacant land, right? So someone gets a listing, they come to you and say, I want to list this property. If you look up at the tax record and you know the owners of the property and who they are, and try to like Google them, find out what other properties they have. As a listing agent, that's your job. Because I could have a fake ID and say, I own this building right now and I want to sell it, I want to list it. And if it's a vacant building or a vacant land, who's to know what's going on? So that's the job of the listing agent to research these things. As a title company, when we get a sale like that, and we never met the person in person, the seller, and we have an attorney telling us that this is what's going on, what we do is we send a certified mail to the mailing address because it's a vacant land, right?
Sure.
So we look up, we have a lot of like software that we use. Like, so let's say Eric, what other properties does he own? And I'm going to send a certified mail to one of his properties and that this is going to be going on sale. And if I don't get a certified mail like it was received, because you have to go to the post office and sign for it.
Right.
So someone who's pretending to be you is not going to be at that property receiving your mail.
Right.
So it's our responsibility and it's the listing agent's responsibility as well. So that's, yeah.
I actually have an experience with that. When I was putting a property on the market for a client, and this was the first time this ever happened to me, and it was a commercial building, and there were these 3 guys that said they owned the building, and they had a restaurant, so they owned the building.
This is a nightmare. Yeah.
They had a liquor license. They had the whole deal, and it was an LLC, so it was their LLC. It all checked out. It made sense, but because it was a commercial property, the tax record showed their LLC because that's who was paying the taxes. But in reality, they weren't the owner of the property.
LLC, wow.
No, they owned the LLC. They didn't own the property. So it took me maybe 5 or 6 months into the negotiation where I actually found out that they weren't the owners and they just had an option to buy the property. They were the tenants, had an option.
Oh, like a land lease?
It was a building, so they were leasing the building, but it was a lease, and they were not transparent. And I think part of their lack of transparency, was because they were from another country. They were not maybe affiliated or didn't understand the laws as well, and they thought that a purchase option meant they owned.
They can
Yeah,
sell.
so it was a little crazy. It worked out because the owner was willing to sell, and I got the deal done. But that was crazy. It never happened to me
Wow.
before.
It's amazing that you actually got the deal done considering that hurdle. Are you able to see number 2? Do you want to read it?
Sure. Beware of unrealistic promises. Well, that's the story of my life. If the deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Be cautious of sellers promising huge returns or guaranteeing a quick sale at a high price, especially in distressed property situations.
So if you see a price that's too good to be true, like a huge property listed for like a very low price, right? Or like having like a very flexible schedule of closing. We're like very flexible. We can close anytime you want. Or if you close in the next 2 weeks, we'll give you a lower price for like $10,000. There are offers out there like that. So as a buyer, you have to be aware. When it's something looks too good to be true, walk away. Like,
Probably is.
Yeah. All right, number 3, get professional help. Consult with real estate agents, attorneys, or other professionals who can provide guidance and assistance throughout the process. They can help identify potential red flags and protect your interests.
So a lot of people try to save money and they want to sell themselves, or they want to not use an attorney and not an agent. So unfortunately, that doesn't work in their benefit. And the other reason that's important to get help is a lot of people try to do assignments. Some people don't know what they're doing, but they find a good deal because they're just talking to someone who wants to sell or who needs to sell because they need money and they're in a bad situation. So they take advantage of that. And they purchase the property and try to sell it for more money. And
A wholesaler.
Yes, a wholesaler. And I'm not saying all wholesalers are like that, but a lot of people take advantage of the situation, and the sellers don't use an attorney. A lot get lost. A lot of money get lost. So it's always good to get an appreciation, an assessment of your property, like what it's worth with a real estate professional expert, and get legal advice to be protected.
I would never not use an attorney. Never. I may not use a real estate broker on certain scenarios, but I would always advise.
How
I would
dare
always
you.
advise people to use a real estate broker. But for myself, since I am a real estate broker, I don't need to use one because it's all up here.
Yeah.
But I would never advise it. I think it's dangerous if you don't have a broker, especially if you have no experience.
Well, unfortunately, South Jersey, they don't use attorneys. Pennsylvania, the whole state, they don't use attorneys.
Wow.
But in commercial deals, it's different. But most
Yeah.
of residential,
Yeah.
they don't.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. You want to take number 4?
Inspect the property. Always conduct a thorough inspection of the property, preferably with a professional inspector as opposed to not a professional inspector. This can help uncover any hidden issues or problems with the property that could affect its value or desirability.
So you have to always inspect the property, and I always advise to order a survey because you don't know what's going on in the surrounding of the property. You don't know what's going on with your neighbors.
Right.
You don't know, again, like if there's
Tree lines.
tree
Ugh.
line, fence line.
Yeah.
So any of these things could be an issue, especially when you come to sell the property if you
Mm-hmm.
have no idea what's going on, if something hidden, if there's like a tank underground,
Mm.
like a lot of things that you don't know. Sometimes we get so excited, this is the home of our dream and this is what we want, and it's very important if you are using legal advice, if you are using a professional, they will guide you in the right way.
That's a great point because sometimes buying property is so emotional when you're the person that's buying it, and you need kind of that professional team around you to keep you seeing straight.
Put some sense into
You know?
it.
Yeah.
Especially
Yes.
for first-time home buyers.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So tip number 5 out of 7, verify ownership and title. Ensure that the seller has clear ownership of the property and that there are no disputes or issues with the title. Work with the title company or attorney to verify the title and ensure a smooth transfer of ownership.
Yeah, so like a lot of times, like if it's a good deal and someone's buying something new and it's like their first time, they might think, oh, it's easy, you're my friend, I trust you, we're gonna do this, I'm gonna finance the property for you, so here's a down payment, I'm gonna give you like every month.
Beware of your friends.
Beware of anyone
Damn.
beware of when you're doing a transaction, when you're buying
course,
property,
yeah.
you have to protect
Sure, yeah.
yourself.
You have to be
100%.
diligent, yeah.
If you just make a choice to do something on your own, you're not protected. You made that choice.
Right, even if it's your friend or not.
It doesn't matter who it is.
Makes sense. No friends. Don't buy from friends.
No new friends.
No new friends. Only old friends.
Number 6.
Number 6. Ooh, I love this one. Avoid pressure tactics. Don't, wait a minute. Be wary of sellers who use high pressure tactics to push you into making a quick decision. Take your time to thoroughly evaluate the property and the deal before committing to anything. I know a lot of loan officers that throw a lot of pressure out there.
So sometimes seller says like, oh, we have to leave, we're traveling, we have a flight, we need to close on this date, we are going on a trip. Like if you're selling a house, like you have to take the time to sell a house. It's a big investment that you had and now you're selling it. So it doesn't make sense when people say like, oh, I have to rush this. So you all have to always be aware. Also, like do not accept using notaries that someone offered to you, like,
Got
oh,
it.
don't worry, like
Yeah.
I'll have someone notarize this for you, I'll send someone to you. So there's a lot going on.
Great example, my favorite movie, The Money Pit, where the old lady is like saying her husband just died or they're getting some divorce, whatever happened, and he pushes Tom Hanks and I forget the woman to buy this house like so quickly, and it turned out to be like a massive house that was falling apart. But so there you
Yeah,
go.
that's a perfect example. It's like one of those Craigslist scams.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're like, no, send the
They
thing.
actually
We'll
got-
send you
they
the check.
actually got the house though.
Oh my
But,
God.
You know, it was a different problem.
Yeah.
But crazy.
And last but not least, number 7 on the list of tips is trust your instincts. If something feels off or doesn't seem right, trust your instincts and proceed with caution. It's better to walk away from a questionable deal, than to risk getting involved in a scam.
Ooh.
Sometimes, like I said, we get very emotional, and you said like you get so excited, especially first-time home buyer, and they save like a lot for years to do this, and we have to be careful. You have to look at things. You have to use legal advice because when you're using legal advice and a professional, they take the emotions out of a transaction.
What's the point of having an attorney? So
And they'll guide you in the right-
How many people have you had walk out of a closing and say, "I'm not doing this"?
So we had one that someone
So it
changed,
doesn't happen often.
No, but they get sued because like you're in
Right,
breach,
right,
right?
right.
But also we had someone, especially like during COVID, we had like couple of investors like dropped a lot of like lenders.
Right.
So we had a deal die at the table because the investors pulled their money.
It's
So
heartbreaking.
things happen. Things happen. We had but again, like when you have to also get not just any legal advice, you have to get the right legal advice. So I don't like when people use their whatever attorney for everything.
Agreed. I have 5 attorneys.
So I use
Should
my
be specified.
I have
specifically
whatever
in a
A, whatever
divorce,
B,
yes.
whatever C.
So if
D,
you're
E.
in a divorce, use a divorce attorney for a real estate transaction. So that doesn't make sense.
So many people do that. Actually, I actually know someone right now who's using a real estate attorney for a divorce transaction. So it's the other way around.
It's the
but
other way around.
it's-
But like, how would
it's totally
how would
screwed
a
up.
Yeah, it
divorce
doesn't sound
attorney?
right.
Well, also they're giving bad advice because how would a divorce attorney know how much the spouse or like needs to purchase
Yep.
the house, to qualify for a purchase,
Or
right?
you have a residential attorney who thinks they know how to close a commercial transaction. That's
Exactly.
another nightmare.
Yes, yes. And what money's left, equity from the business, how to evaluate the business. Like it's very complicated.
Know your attorneys, ask questions.
Yeah, so we had actually two sisters. They were purchasing a house for their mother. They saved so much and they wanted like retire her. It's such a nice story. They used a family attorney who has nothing to do with real estate, and he told one sister, they're buying the house together, right? They took the loan together. He said to her like, "Oh, no problem. You can just go and do the closing today." And the other sister lived in Texas. So one sister shows up at our conference room to do the closing, and
You're like,
the other one is not like, you can't. Do you have a power of attorney? No. Now we have to rewrite the whole loan.
oh my gosh.
Send it back to underwriting.
Yeah.
Did you get that done that day?
We did, same day. We actually we prepped a power of attorney, found a notary, sent it to whatever address in Texas that was, got it scanned, sent it to the underwriter. It was a Friday. I think we closed at like 10 p.m. at night.
Nice.
Wow.
See the dedication.
Yeah.
But it helps
seriously.
also which lender you're working with, because
Right.
not all lenders are flexible.
Yeah.
I think it's a title.
It's
a pitfall.
Yeah, me
definitely,
too.
Yes.
I
It's
think-
how far are you willing to, help? Because not everyone's want to extend.
Not everyone's
Yeah.
Yara. We talked about all the possible pitfalls of title and what to watch out for. We went through the 7 tips.
7 deadly steps of title
Yes,
insurance.
of how to protect yourself from getting your house stolen. To
And
end
we
this,
learned about enhanced title.
an enhanced title.
Yes.
Enhanced policy.
Yes, very cool. And I had no idea about that before this. So is there any final tip that you have for viewers?
So at the end of the day, it's the buyer's choice to pick the title company. So unfortunately, when someone purchases a house, the first thing they look at is like their interest rate or the property. Like they never look about the title company. And like there's so many relationships between realtors and attorneys and title companies. And if you're gonna follow whatever advice your legal attorney is giving you, then fine, but at least like question.
Yeah.
Question the company, who's their underwriter, how long they've been in business, because there's a lot of joint ventures between like brokerage and title companies, attorneys and title companies, and that puts the buyer in a bad situation, because if that company is not doing their job, not all doctors are good doctors, right? Like
Yeah, that's a great point.
They're all graduated, but they're not all good doctors.
point.
So not all title companies are good title companies. We're all set by the state of New Jersey when it comes to price. So it's not like you're shopping around, you're gonna get a better deal somewhere else. Go for the best. Go for the one who has like the most experience.
Yep.
Go for like who don't have claims, been there for a long time. Always ask. It's
Ask
your right.
questions.
Just don't go blindly.
That's the number one takeaway. Ask questions.
Ask
know your
questions.
title company. It's just as important as your attorney, and it's just as
And
important
ask what
as
title
your,
is.
your real estate agent.
Ask what is title. What am I paying this? Like, don't ask the day off.
From the title queen herself. Thank you, Yara.
Thanks for watching this episode. Now don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And we'll see you next time.